Hello there, back again. Right, I've just been adding a bit more of my just cross hatching and making it a little bit dark and what have you. So I thought I just got to the window, so I'll do some of the window with you. All I'm going to do is add some very light strokes. So I want it to look as though there's glass in this window, all going in the same direction. There we go. And you've noticed I've made it a bit darker around the outside, so the actual window really does look quite prominent now. But I don't want it to look this prominent, or else it's just going to take over the entire picture. So the sill, I'm assuming, might be a piece of stone, or it might just be some wood. So I'm just going to go through it as if I could imagine it was a plank of wood and it has grains in it that go in this direction, which is exactly what I did with the door when I did the first demo live, not the previous demo to this. So you can add little knots and shapes. See, as you see on the door here, just oval shapes can make some knots into the wood grain. And then if you want to, you can even add perhaps the odd nail as well, which just a little black spot could look like a little nail perhaps in the door. Studs, that sort of thing. But you don't have to. There we go. So back to the window. I'm going to keep adding a little bit of darker around the edges. This is just a straight line. I've already been across with a crosshatch. You notice the branch here, instead of just sticking on, it's always a slight, you've got to make it look as though it's actually in the tree. So I like to do little curves around it. It just helps it to look as though it is part of the tree. Again, if you use a real tree for reference, that might help you. You'll probably end up with a better image than the one I have here, because I've just used this. This design was done from my imagination, but that's one of the things I adore about fantasy drawing. You can just make it up and do your own thing. It's the way that we can imagine and remember shapes and just visualize it in your head. It's something I would like to do with some of my classes, is to just guide you as to how to look at things and imagine something that's not really there, but perhaps it is. Who's to know? Right, a little bit more for the glass in the window there. Okay, so I'm just going to go really lightly over this, because at the moment the window's just far too pale and it really stands out just way too much. So I'm just literally going over the whole thing just a little bit. If I want to make the glass look a bit darker again, I just notice on the glass I've gone in the same direction, just to make it look as though there's a reflection a little bit in the glass. But again, because this little tree house is in the middle of the wood, the lighting can be a little bit strange. It's not going to be quite so bright. That's it, just go around the frame, make it all stand out nicely. Now if you want to, you could give yourself a slight wood grain on the frame if you want, but not too much, because you don't want the window to vanish altogether into the tree. There we are. I'll put some like veins in here. If you ever look at tree bark, it's one of the most fantastic things, but there's so many different varieties and types. I'm not really sure what this type is. I've obviously made it up, so it's tree bark. And there's the little wooden windowsill, which hopefully almost looks as though it's resting on this part here. There we go. That's looking quite nice. make this a little darker because that's just a bit too pale at the moment. They also come into their own when you do add some colour afterwards. They tend to, once they're monochrome, they can look a bit sort of confusing. You can't see all the shapes quite so easily. As soon as you put a bit of colour on them, everything pops. A little bit of green moss here and there, and brownish tree trunks, and whatever colour toadstools you want to do. So I'm just lightly going over all of the tree and the little house, but because I've already started going darker, even though I'm applying the same pressure right the way over, the areas that I'd already done a little bit darker, because they're just getting another stroke of pen, will continue to still look darker, so you don't really lose any of your detail, which is nice. Now if you want to add some extra depth, keep doing it. This is where you can see where a bit more shadow might be needed. I have a bit more shadow over here in the doorway, and this is the front of the steps, so I think they would be probably lighter. I've probably done that a little wrong, so I'm going to see if I can make the steps themselves darker. We'll see what happens, and then see if this bit here can be lighter. This will be darker, but this little bit here is supposed to be the front of the step. Doesn't look that clever at the moment, but and then this is the drop off the step. This is the flat part where the little path would be. So I'm going to just do that a little bit darker, and hopefully we should get some slight contrast from the step. That's something perhaps I should have thought about before continuing. Right. We've got a bit of an edge there to it now. I think you can see slightly that there is a difference. So off across the little path we go into the woods. Nobody knows. Where are we going? So I'm just leaving it a tiny bit lighter in there. I just want this little bit of contrast again. There. I do hope you have a go at this. It's really good fun. It's one of my favourite mediums because you can if you get yourself a little pad, if you want to do a tiny little sketch underneath first so that you know where your lines are all going to go, that's perfectly okay. And then you can make it up as you go along. I find it's the sort of thing you can just sit and watch the TV if you like, or just sit and concentrate on little black lines. And the more black you apply, right, we're going to put some grass in. Watch this. This is just a nice dark stroke, and there's some little tufts of grass right at the front there. Just whoop, 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 little strokes like that. Nice and dark, and they just stand out. Then perhaps you want to put little seed pods in, just tiny little lines off the grass. So that's all I've done, just like that, little lines off, and that can make it look like a little grass seed head. But we'll do more of those as we go over here. So let's just make sure this isn't hiding too much. See, right, there we go. You see, that's inside the tree root there. So this is all the moss and the little leaves and things that might be growing in the bank where the tree roots are. And then this is another tree root which is further to the edge. And again, you can put some more bits of grass in here, a bit bolder with those. And on the outside, so those are on the inside of the tree root, and these are on the outside. Okay. And you can, again, if you want to, put some little seed heads on. There, seed. That's just like a little grass seed head, those. So I had been thinking about putting some more mushrooms up in this top corner, but I don't think I will. I might keep it just so it's at the edge of the wood and you're just looking over, and the wood perhaps have been a field or something here, but you don't have to see the field. It could just be some sky, a skyline. I'm just going to add just a little bit of sort of shading. Simple straight lines. This will create a little bit of a background effect, which you can use. It's almost as if you say shading in the sky a little. Right, having difficulty seeing this because again I'm looking through the tripod at this, but we will see what will happen. So the just diagonal lines, giving it a little bit of depth again. There we go. I don't know what that's like, I can't really see it from here. It's a bit tricky when you're drawing something and you can't actually see what it is you're doing. But hey, fabulous. Okay, so if you want to, you can always put a little bit of foliage the other side of the tree trunk as well, to go along with those few blades of grass that you've already done. There. Right, so I might stop it there for you. Again, don't want you to get too bored, so I might just finish off a little bit of this skyline, create something like that, and then I'll bring it back to show you what I've done, and then we might try and add some colour to it. Thank you, see you later.